At some point in your life, you've probably bought something of dubious value. Maybe a nice handbag that turned out to be fake, a Yu-Gi-Oh card that wasn't as rare as you were led to believe, or a master's degree in general studies. The thing is, even in the case of those less than stellar purchases, at least you ended up with something you could hold in your hands. But that isn't the case with all acquisitions. From old memes and historic tweets to pictures of bored cartoon apes, get ready to learn about some of the most expensive virtual items ever sold. Non-fungible taco. Alright, before we get too deep into this topic, we need to talk a little about NFTs. NFTs are non-fungible tokens represent unreplicable receipts for digital pieces of data. For example, I could sell you an NFT of this picture of a piece of ham. While anyone can view, copy, paste, or even save the picture itself, only you would own that exact NFT. These trades are mostly done in Ethereum. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, but its blockchain system also supports NFTs. That's a lot of terminology, but at the end of the day, you can think of an NFT as a receipt, digital thumbprint, or proof of ownership certificate for your picture of ham, or a video of some ham, a Word document that says ham, heck, even an audio recording of someone dropping some ham on the floor. An NFT can be pretty much any digital file, and these days just about everything is. For example, Taco Bell recently created several taco-themed NFTs, which are a mix of images and GIFs, and listed them for just 0.001 Ethereum, around $2 or $3. They were quickly snatched up, and some have been successfully resold for up to 3 Ethereum, which at the time I'm recording this is a little under $8,000. That's a pretty steep profit. In fact, that one NFT taco traded for enough to pay for more than 4,000 actual Taco Bell tacos. Well, maybe it did. It's important to point out when talking about NFT purchases that in addition to transaction fees, the exchange rate from Ethereum to dollars fluctuates a lot. This can make it hard to tell exactly how much someone makes when selling an NFT, so keep that in mind moving forward. And for when this video inevitably goes up for sale as an NFT itself. Reviving the classics. If you thought it couldn't get any sillier than animated taco gifts selling for thousands of dollars, well, you've got a lot to learn about this market. Case in point, every tired, old, unfunny meme from my teenage years has been converted into an NFT by this point. Hooray, my youth is relevant again. For example, our old friend Yancat, the 8-bit rainbow pooping flying Pop-Tart cat who first went viral back in 2011, was sold as an NFT by the original creator for $590,000. That's about $49,166 for each of its 12 frames of animation. In June of 2021, the Charlie Bit My Finger kids were able to auction off an NFT of their 2007 iconic viral video for the equivalent of $760,999. That's a lot for a minute-long clip of one kid biting another. Still, none of these memes compare to Doge, who 11 years on is still the king of the internet. The simple picture of a Shiba Inu looking slyly to the side, which became widely used alongside broken English phrases and colored Comic Sans lettering, is one of the most popular memes of all time and a perfect pop culture reference. An NFT of the original image recently sold for around $4 million worth of Ethereum. Why would anyone pay so much money for some old memes? Well, likely because they think they'll increase in value, and they'll be able to sell them for even more down the line. Or maybe they're just connoisseurs of fine digital art. Still, NFTs aren't all good news for creators, with many having their work stolen and sold without their permission. For example, only a few months after beloved online artist Kini tragically passed away from lung cancer, her work was being sold as NFTs. In response to this, many artists are told they simply should have turned their work into NFTs first. Which is a bit like if I snuck into the break room at 10 a.m., ate your lunch out of the refrigerator, then blamed you for not eating it first. Wow, so bad. Very sneaky. Much disappoint. A historic tweet. Over the centuries, countless priceless works of art have been created that truly say something different. From Magritte's Son of Man and Grant Wood's American Gothic to Jack Dorsey's Just Setting Up My Twitter. Wait, what? Is one of those things a little less impactful than the others? What you're currently looking at is the first ever tweet tweeted on Twitter.com in March 2006. This tweet was tweeted by none other than Jack Dorsey, who founded the social media platform and, these days, looks more like Rasputin than a social media guru. Since this humble beginning, Twitter has exploded into a worldwide powerhouse. On average, the current 206 million active users tweet 500 million times per day, or 200 billion times per year. If Twitter were a nation, it would have a population larger than Russia, tweeting more times per year than there have been people to ever live. In March 2021, Dorsey turned the tweet into an NFT and was able to sell the banal piece of internet history for $2.9 million. Yeah, those priceless works of art comparisons don't seem so exaggerated now, huh? In case you're wondering, that's more than the combined value of all the Van Gogh paintings currently on screen. Sina Estavi, who bought the NF tweet, likened it to the Mona Lisa. I guess beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. The skin I pwn in. Let's take a break from NFTs for a moment to talk about something else I don't understand. Fortnite. The game took the world by storm in 2017 and has been amassing dances and lawsuits ever since. Inevitably, as the game became more and more popular, it started launching more and more licensed tie-in events. You could attend Deadmau5 concerts in Fortnite, play as Thanos in Fortnite. Heck, the crummy third Star Wars sequel even gave away major spoilers before it was released. In Fortnite. As you can imagine, a lot of these events were time-sensitive, meaning if you missed out, you could never experience them again. This has driven the value of some limited-time items way up. For example, the Blue Team Leader skin could only be attained by those who own the PlayStation Plus Celebration Pack and resells on eBay for a few $100s. The Double Helix skin was only available as part of a Nintendo Switch bundle, which can now sell for upwards of a few $1,000s on eBay. Though to be fair, that one does include a Switch console. Still, even these skins don't compare to the pale-faced Skull Trooper. Originally released as a Halloween tie-in, demand for this grim costume has only increased over time, with some Skull Trooper skins going for nearly $5,000. Personally, I don't understand why people would pay so much for this. It's all skin and bones. Bored of Apes. If you've been online in the last year, there's a chance you've seen a cartoon like this of an ape looking pretty bored. Well, all these images are part of an NFT collection adeptly called Bored Ape Yacht Club. The collection is a series of 10,000 algorithmically generated images of apes, each with a different and unique set of expressions and accessories, some of which are rarer than others. An ape with a combination of rare elements sells high, real high. At the time I'm recording this, the most an ape has sold for is number 8817, for the equivalent of an eye-watering $3.4 million. But apes regularly break $1 million. When you buy an ape, you do also gain access to a private club of other ape owners and the rights to reproduce and sell your ape. But considering you can just right-click and save this image, it still seems like a hefty entry fee. Oh, and if any of these apes look ugly to you, well, it's probably because they are. Remember that these NFTs weren't actually designed by an artist. They're just a collection of assets a program smushed together, like hitting the random button when creating a character in a video game. Only each of these 10,000 apes is unique, technically. While this is obviously cheaper than paying an artist to design a bunch of unique characters, it also means the results can be, let's say, varied. This is the same process all large collections use, which is why NFTs like Lazy Lions, Potato Power, Trolls, Doge Pound, Cute Pig Club, Satoshi Spuds, Freedom Bunnies, the Snake NFTs, On-Chain Monkey, and many more are so unappealing to look at. But it was Bored Ape Yacht Club's initial popularity that fundamentally shaped the NFT scene we see today, which is what makes them so valuable in comparison. So much so, there are some apes listed for up to 100 trillion Ethereum, which is currently worth more than $280 quadrillion. That's more money than has ever existed on Earth. I don't think the bank is going to approve that loan. Burning $95,000. You know, street artist Banksy and NFTs have a lot in common. Both are drenched in sarcasm, both seek to disrupt the status quo, and both are, in the eyes of most people, extremely overvalued. It makes sense then that the British artist's work would end up as an NFT, though it happened in an appropriately novel way. Back in 2006, Banksy created Morons, White. As you can see, the piece is a not very subtle critique of the art world, depicting an art auction selling a piece of art while mocking the bidders. Eventually, the artwork was bought by blockchain firm Injective Protocol, who in 2021 released a very interesting video. What you're currently looking at is a member of Injective Protocol burning the artwork the firm paid $95,000 for. If literally burning $95,000 seems strange to you, congrats! That's a very normal brain thing to think. The reason for the piece's destruction was so the firm could later sell it as an NFT. They claim that since the original was destroyed, the NFT was the most authentic version of the art that remained. Whether or not you think the NFT is more relevant than the screenshot of it on screen now doesn't matter, because someone decided to buy it for $380,000, netting Injective Protocol an insane $285,000 profit. Pretty ironic when you consider the subject matter of the piece, don't you think? The source of our misery. In 1989, computer engineer Sir Tim Berners-Lee brought his vision of a unified international network to life, inventing the World Wide Web. That eventually evolved into the internet we know today. And things have pretty much gone downhill for humanity since, if your mom's Facebook posts are anything to go by. But hey, don't be mad at Tim, it seemed like a good idea at the time. In June of 2021, Tim auctioned off an NFT representing his creation from 30 years prior. The This Changed Everything collection features 4 items: time-stamped files from the original web source code, a letter written by Tim, a digital poster of the code, and a 30-minute video of the code being written. For when there's just nothing on Netflix, I guess. While bidding on the collection started at just $1,000, it soon skyrocketed before being sold to an anonymous bidder for the equivalent of a staggering $5.4 million. While the idea of owning a piece of the web, a freely available network built on connecting people, might seem a little ironic, that's not how Tim sees it. In his letter, he calls NFTs the latest playful creations in this realm, and the most authentic form of ownership that exists. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure you like and subscribe for more freely available content from BMAs on this beautiful World Wide Web of ours. Carambits and Bobs. If you're relatively young and still have your reflexes intact, Counter-Strike Global Offensive is an incredibly popular online shooter with a vast array of customization options. If you're my age, however, it's a game about walking around a map for 5 seconds before being shot by someone you never even saw. It's fine, I prefer turn-based games anyway. CSGO, as fans call it, boasts an insane number of collectibles and an even more insane number of players, currently averaging around 20 million monthly players. As you can imagine, a giant install base of manly men mannishly shooting each other with their big old guns creates a lot of competition. And these guys don't just compete with firepower, but with fashion for their firearms. CSGO weapon skins are converted for both their rarity and looks, even though they don't improve the equipment stats in any way. And because these skins are unlocked randomly by players, they can sell for ridiculous amounts too. For example, the StatRack 5.7 case hardened with Titan Hollows can be priced up to $38,000, while the souvenir AWP Dragon Lore has sold for more than $61,000. But even that doesn't compare to the factory new case-hardened Blue Gem Carambit, which one player bought for an insane $120,000, a record price in the CSGO skin marketplace. Look, I'm a nerd. I've spent countless hours grinding out weapons in MMOs. But even I wouldn't sacrifice a down payment on a house for a pretty virtual pattern on my virtual knife. The Mystery Box. Alright, so what if I told you you could purchase a JPEG of an ape for $125,000? Or for the same price,
what's in this box?
That's because sometimes when you purchase an NFT, you don't even know what you're buying. These colorful creations are hash masks, and there are 16,384 in existence. Like Bored Ape and other collections, hash masks have been algorithmically generated from a collection of assets. In my opinion though, the creations that result from hash mask mergers look more purposefully designed, like something an actual artist might come up with. The real draw of hash masks though is from the mystery. You see, when you buy a hash mask, there's actually no guarantee what it is you're getting. Buyers aren't made aware of which hash mask they've purchased until 14 days after the sale, which is apparently to ensure sales and the distribution of different hash masks is fair. The entire collection has apparently generated over $16 million, though the most a hash mask has sold for is this pretty number for around $650,000. Mainly because 5 of its 7 properties have a less than 1% chance of being generated. So being generated all in one image is a massively rare combination. Additionally, whenever a hash mask is sold, the buyer gets to assign it a name, meaning there is a small collaborative element to the collection. This would also explain why so many hash masks have names like Gwen Stefani, Crypto Mom, and Bored Ape. Well, that's gonna get confusing real quick. Everyday Millionaire. In May of 2007, Mike Winkelmann set himself an insane challenge to create a new piece of art every single day for as long as he could. Deciding to go by the online alias Beeple, perhaps thinking it would distract from his already pretty silly name, Winkelmann got to work. Day after day, Winkelmann created new pieces of digital art, sometimes melancholic, sometimes silly, sometimes politically charged, and sometimes even a strange mix of all three. Somehow Winkelmann was able to go over 13.5 years without missing a single day. Man, I can't even manage to shower every day. This guy is dedicated. Winkelmann compiled his work into a piece called Everydays, the first 5,000 days, and created a high-quality NFT of the artwork. The reputable auction house Christie's put the NFT up for sale, marking the first time they'd ever sold a piece of digital artwork. The piece recently made history, selling for a staggering $69 million, which averages out at about $13,860 per piece of art. That's a pretty good day rate. The piece was purchased by Indian crypto investor Vinesh Sundaresan, who claims he bought the piece to show the world that the global south was rising and had money to spend. As others have pointed out, however, the sale may also have been influenced by the fact that Winkelmann owns 2% of Sundaresan's own cryptocurrency, the value of which shot up 6,000% after the sale.
Coincidence? I think not!
The Punk Bunch. Are Bored Apes, Lazy Lions, and On-Chain Monkeys somehow too interesting for you? Well, great news! You can enjoy this even more bland collection of NFT characters. Meet the CryptoPunks, a collection of 10,000 24x24 pixel headshots. As with Bored Apes and similar collections, CryptoPunks were all generated by an algorithm with certain traits made intentionally rarer than others. Ape CryptoPunks, for example, are incredibly rare, with only 24 in existence. What? You didn't think we were done with apes, did you? On average, CryptoPunks are currently selling for between $350,000 and $500,000 worth of crypto each. Those are just average going rates though. These two ultra-rare alien CryptoPunks, number 7804 and number 3100, sold for over $7.5 million each. But how can 24 pixels have that much value? Well, CryptoPunks were created way back in 2017. Making them one of the earliest crypto collectibles, while also being credited for starting the 2021 craze for NFTs. Hence the multi-million-dollar price tags. But for all that, these don't come close to the most expensive CryptoPunks sold to date. You see, this blocky boy right here is technically, get this, the single most expensive piece of art ever sold. That's right, this collection of 24x24 pixels sold for an eye-watering $532 million. That means that CryptoPunk number 9998 sold for more money than the most expensive painting ever auctioned, which hit just $450 million. That painting was Salvator Mundi, painted by Leonardo da Vinci over 500 years ago. In fact, let's just put them side by side for a minute. to really drive this point home. But if things seem fishy to you, you're onto something, because this NFT's buyer and seller are the same person. From the transaction data, it appears the buyer took out a flash loan, which is an online cryptocurrency loan that only goes through if certain criteria are met. In this case, it was buying Punk number 9998. The owner transferred the NFTs from one of their wallets to another, then took out a flash loan for more than $500 million worth of crypto, bought the Punk with one wallet, transferred it back into the first wallet, and then repaid the loan. This may have been to create artificial buzz around the NFT as part of an unknown real-world deal, or just to make headlines and drive up its price further. Seeing as it's currently on sale by the same wallet owner for $701.7 million, I reckon it's the latter. Intrepid Entropia. Entropia Universe is an online multiplayer game set in the far reaches of outer space. Players engage in crazy futuristic activities like piloting spacecrafts, discovering alien creatures, and watching YouTube videos without them buffering every 5 seconds. Gotcha! Anyway, Entropia Universe was released in 2003, so it's showing its age a bit now, but at its height it was extremely popular and paved the way for virtual trade in video games. In 2009, Entropia boasted around 820,000 registered users who'd spent over $420 million in user-to-user transactions, sometimes for thousands of dollars a pop. In 2010, so much hype and cash was flowing through Entropia, users were able to sell this egg for nearly $70,000. No one even knew what was in it either. It had been won by a player who'd completed a unique quest, and when they put it up for sale as a mystery egg, people just had to know what was inside. For 7 long years after purchase, nothing happened. But then one day, this thing emerged from it? Well, maybe they should have just made a giant omelet. Still, this isn't the craziest Entropia exchange. That honor goes to John Never Die Jacobs, who mortgaged his actual house in 2005 in order to buy a virtual asteroid for $100,000 in-game. Jacobs eventually turned this plot of land, or plot of space, into a virtual club, Club Never Die. The club enjoyed music, a stadium, and even a marketplace where users could sell in-game goods, with Jacobs getting a small cut of each sale. According to Jacobs, the club ended up making him around $200,000 per year before he sold it completely in 2010 for $635,000. Assuming the club got off the ground quickly, that's a profit of over $1.5 million. I suddenly really resent my parents for telling me playing video games all day would never pay off. Grimy Balls. Grimes is a popular artist, known firstly for her music, and secondly for having an ex-partner in Elon Musk, the man who owns Tesla and really needs to take a break from Twitter. In February of 2021, Grimes got in on the NFT game with her War Nymph collection, primarily made up of separate Earth and Mars variants. Each NFT is an animation of a cherub ominously hovering over their respective planet, set to an electronic beat, which at the very least is more than you get with a Bored Ape. Several thousands of these NFTs were created, and rather than being auctioned, were simply sold for $7,500 apiece. In addition to Earth and Mars, the collection included one unique NFT called Death of the Old, which features even more buoyant babies, along with several floating swords and crosses, which I'm sure has a very deep and poignant meaning. Somewhere. Thanks to Grimes' popularity, Death of the Old sold for approximately $389,000. According to Nifty Gateway, the platform on which she sold the NFTs, a portion of the profits would be going to Carbon 180, a non-profit focused on removing carbon from the atmosphere, though it's unclear how much. In total, this Grimy Planet collection ended up netting the artist a little under $6 million. Well, it's easier than going on tour. I am stupid. So we've learned that people will spend obscene amounts of money on functionless digital items. But where did this all begin? Well, let's go on a journey all the way back to late 2008. Things weren't looking good. China had just suffered a devastating earthquake. The 2008 financial crisis was swinging in full force, and worst of all, Spider-Man 4 was put on permanent hiatus. It was out of this dark period that I Am Rich emerged onto the iOS store. The app broke ground, being priced at a ridiculous $999. For that, when you open the app, you were greeted with a low-res image of a diamond and the text, "I am rich. I deserve it. I am good. healthy, and successful. Didn't deserve an E in that sentence though, I guess. The purpose of the app was supposedly to show off how rich the owner was, and 8 people ended up downloading it before Apple took it down a day after its premiere without any explanation. While I Am Rich is dwarfed in price by other items we've looked at today, you have to wonder, how did we go from mocking and removing $1,000 JPEGs in the 2000s to treating them as investments in the 2020s? What do you think? Am I off the mark here? Do you have an NFT of some ham that's quadrupled in value over the course of this video's runtime? Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. Thanks for watching.